Okay, hey everybody. I guess we can go ahead and get started. So, in case there is confusion, Don Fry is not at the convention this year. So if anybody's here for Don Fry, you will be confused. But this is the panel that was originally supposed to be next door for a Lost Films trailer reel. So it's kind of funny to have, I'm taking the place of a canceled guest in this room. We're going to talk about a lot of projects that got canceled. As we all know, there's this idiom that no movie is real until it has a trailer. Sometimes you'll even see announcements or posters that get put out up there into the public, and it turns out that these things simply never materialize. And here are a few examples from the kaiju genre that people might be pretty familiar with. But even when it has a trailer, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're ever going to see the movie. And here are a couple of examples of movies that had trailers come out. Those trailers looked great. They were widely distributed to the public, and we are still waiting on them a decade later. So there's a lot of reasons why something like this might happen. Sometimes a production is on track to be made and it gets interrupted partway through. Sometimes it's just a proof of concept piece that's done as a pitch. So the idea is that investors will see it and they'll want to put funds into completing it as a full movie. Sometimes a trailer is just made for fun as a fan film. Somebody doesn't have the intellectual property, but they want to make something as a lark, or they want to get attention. So a common way, if you're a new filmmaker, you know that it's very difficult to get on people's radar. You will make a fan film that is of a character that people know, and then everybody gets their eyes on it, and then somebody might be like, hey, this guy's got talent. Let's give him a real project. And then you also have trailers that might only be trailers because they're a joke. They're not ever meant to be taken seriously. They're just kind of done as a gag. But just because something starts as only a trailer, did we lose picture? There we go. Just because something starts as only a trailer doesn't mean it stays as only a trailer. Sometimes something starts as a trailer and it gets enough people's attention that it becomes a full movie or TV series. So we're going to go today and talk about a number of things that exist only in trailer form. And we'll start off with one that actually no longer even exists in trailer form, and that is for the original Horde Beast Nezera. This was a 1964 project from Daiei about giant rats that attack. And they basically were filming this movie, and it became more and more of a disaster as the film was being made. Because it turns out if you're using feral rats as your kaiju in a movie, feral rats are not easy to control, and they have parasites, and it was kind of an ill-conceived venture from the get-go. But the good thing that came out of this is that Daiei basically had all of these miniature sets, and they said, hey, we can still do something with this. We still want to make a kaiju movie, and they created Gamera rightly after. So this had a trailer that played in theaters in 1963, and for a long time it was in the Daiei vault through the transition through Tokuma. But when everything was transitioned over to Kadokawa in 2001, the remaining trailers were lost. So we don't have any remaining footage from Nezera, but there have been recreations, for an example, in the movie Nezera 1964. But while we're speaking of Gamera, this is one that I think that most people here will have probably seen and be familiar with. This was a project that was announced in 2014 for Katsuhito Ishii Gamera film. And when it was debuted at New York Comic Con in 2015, they said that they're looking for additional funding. And so far, it's now 2022. Katsuhito Ishii was attached to the movie Red Line, which took 7 years to make. But I'm thinking that this movie is probably dead in the water at this point. So this had a full 4-minute trailer and a shorter 30-second one. Only the 30-second one is officially on the Kadokawa YouTube page, so you have to pirate this trailer now if you want to see the full thing. Speaking of Comic-Con exclusive trailers, the first trailer that came out for the 2014 Legendary Godzilla features a whole bunch of stuff that is not in the final movie. This is another one that you'll probably find all over online because it's pirated. It was never officially leaked. This has, it starts with a quote from Oppenheimer, and it has this very shadowy Godzilla as a teaser, and then this dead monster that doesn't appear in the movie, and nobody knows exactly what the deal is with it. So it's a very kind of interesting what has changed between this concept and the movie that we finally got. Speaking of teasers, one of the most well-known teasers of all time, because it played in front of Men in Black, which is a huge hit movie, is the teaser for the 1998 American Godzilla. And this is basically, for those who weren't around at the time, which might be some of us, you get this, this museum tour where a group is being led through a museum, and you see the T-Rex and a huge foot comes down and stomps it. And the idea is that this monster is so much bigger than the monster in Jurassic Park. And you know, we all got very excited for this movie, and then we learned our lesson a couple years later. This scene, also not in the movie. Speaking of stuff that's not in the movie, the scene that we got for the first King of the Monsters for 2019 trailer. You can see the cameraman in the background. That's obviously not in the final bit either. I've got one that's a little bit more obscure on the American kaiju front. Michael Deek, who did effects for Zarkor the Invader and Kra the Sea Monster, had a short. There's two different versions of this called Marlin Man, and while this never resulted in a full feature, footage from it was used in the action movie The Demolitionist. So somebody is watching Marlin Man on television. I don't know exactly when this is from, but I'm thinking it was probably from 1995. Let's see if we can play clips here and see if we can take a look at Marlin Man. Okay, it does not seem like sound is working, or picture. Maybe we shouldn't do that again. Well, it is on YouTube, so I will. I'll link it after the show. I'll put everything up on YouTube from this presentation. It's unfortunate that the video doesn't seem like it's projecting for whatever reason. We get back to the slide deck. Yeah. Technology, isn't it wonderful? Yeah, well, if we end early, I'll just play stuff directly off of the laptop and people can crowd around it. Jellyfish Eyes 2, this is one that breaks my heart because I really love the original Jellyfish Eyes, the Takashi Murakami movie from 2012. And it ends with a trailer for Jellyfish Eyes 2, and then he kept releasing more trailers for Jellyfish Eyes 2 over the years as the actors that were children kept growing older and older. And finally, in 2020, he just said, "Look, this is not happening." But the monster designs are really fantastic, and I wish that this had been something that was realized. Another trailer that you get at an end of a movie is at the end of the Kitaka Taguchi film, Gihara, the long and black-haired monster.
There's a trailer for Gihara Monster Martial Law, and this was clearly a joke. This was not intended as an actual production announcement of any kind. It spoofs a whole bunch of tropes that you see in the Godzilla movies, and even has the same trailer music from the initial Godzilla Final Wars trailers. So it's really a campy celebration to celebrate that very funny parody of a movie. Along similar lines, at the end of Takashi Miike's Yatterman, you get a trailer for the next episode, which it even says "See you next week," which they're not actually going to do that with a theatrical film. This is one that was done as a pilot film, and this was from Koichi Kawakita, the same guy that did the special effects for the Heisei Godzilla films, and this really looks like a neat project to me. It's along the lines of the Dark Crystal, where everything is done with puppets and miniature work, sort of a swashbuckling adventure. These puppets were eventually recycled into another project called Visual Doll, but I'm kind of heartbroken that we never got a full anything built out of Fuhito, because what we see in this trailer is really quite beautiful. Now, another Western project is the Leviathan. This was something that was really floating around quite a bit back in 2015. It was quite hyped up. It was on the internet. The teaser got 2.2 million views on Vimeo and just about as many on YouTube. So it was announced that this was going to be a huge 20th Century Fox project. It was going to be produced by the guy behind District 9, Neil Blomkamp. The script is Jim Moles from Fight Club. And it was just this Moby Dick in space concept, and you get the spaceships that are hunting giant floating whales, and it looked really neat, but again, nothing has become of it ever since. Another trailer from a Western side is Monster Roll. I've heard that the people behind Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow were involved with this, but I'm not 100% from what I've seen in the documentation. But it was a pitch from a special effects guy, Dan Blank, who did a whole bunch of things at that time. And it's basically very similar to the Monster Seafood Wars, the Minoru Kawasaki thing, where it's sushi chefs that fight giant sea creatures, because it's got these great sequences like a tentacle coming up in the middle of a restaurant through the sink and things like that. A real shame that we didn't get this as a full feature. So a pitch thing that I don't think often gets thought of as such is the initial pilot for Mystery Science Theater. So when this was first pitched to the network, which was a local Minneapolis-based station at the time, Joel Hodgson put together this basically pilot for the show that's only 14 minutes, and it's a very proof of concept thing. They don't really talk, they just kind of show, like, here's how we would do the movie theater sequences and things like that. And the funny thing to me is that they featured the movie The Green Slime, the Japanese Kinji Fukasaku film. That movie was never, in the 14 seasons of Mystery Science Theater, it's never actually been on the show itself. Another kind of animation test pitch project was from Tsuburaya Productions, and this is the Giant Beast Planet. And for those that know what Tsuburaya was doing in the 70s, they were really experimenting with this hot new thing, anime. But because they're a special effects company, they didn't want to go full in on anime. So they had this interesting hybrid where they have live action sequences for the special effects, and then the characters themselves are anime characters. So this ultimately resulted in shows like Born Free and Eisenborg and Aztekaiser. But the initial pitch is this spacefaring adventure where the people are out on a monster planet of some kind, and none of the shows that they actually made were quite like that. This is not even about dinosaurs. Another Tsuburaya pitch is Ultraman Neos, which was meant to basically relaunch the Ultraman franchise. Remember, Ultraman 80 happened in 1980, and then there was nothing for a very long time. So Ultraman Neos, they wanted to relaunch the brand for the 30th anniversary of the franchise, and they came up with this pitch for the TBS, which is the Japanese TBS, not the American TBS, just to show off, like, look at all of our new special effects, and we can do things with CGI. And they even started off with footage from the old shows to say, this is old and busted, now we can do the new hotness. So they really went on a big campaign with this. They put these characters in like magazines and merchandise, but they didn't actually have a show for 5 years because this didn't really come to pass as an actual series, but it did result in Ultraman Tiga getting greenlit, so you know, I think it all's well that ends well. Now, speaking of Ultraman things that never really saw the light of day, this one is very frustrating because while it is illegal and shouldn't exist, it does exist, and if it does exist, I want to see it. So this is, does anybody not know the whole deal with the Tsuburaya and Chayo debacle regarding Ultraman? Okay, so I see a couple hands in the audience. There was a company in Thailand which claimed to have the rights to Ultraman, and they fought over it for decades. And even though by their legal claim that was falsified, they didn't have the rights to make new Ultraman things, they did. So they made this Ultraman TV series in Thailand. It was planned for 52 episodes. About 13 episodes got made, and they were, you know, constantly seeking investors, but they can't release it because they don't actually have the rights to it. So as far as people can tell, there's 13 episodes sitting in a vault of some investors, probably in China, for this show that we'll never get to see. It's kind of a wild situation. I would really rather that Tsuburaya in Japan was able to get the rights back to it, but they might maybe just want to wash their hands of this whole situation. But yeah, you can buy figures and merchandise for this show that never came out. I think a lot of people have seen this clip, and a lot of people have wondered, what is the deal with this clip? And I don't think we'll ever get a full answer. But 1 year before the 50th anniversary of Ultraman, you get this mysterious trailer that shows up on their YouTube page without any elaboration. And it has this really nice looking fight between Ultraman and Zargas in Shibuya. And it just says like 7-7, so something is supposed to be coming the next year. Allegedly what this was a test for an AR attraction. And that makes sense because the office for Tsuburaya was in Shibuya, and if you were in that office, you could put on your AR goggles and you could look out and you could see Ultraman and Zargas fighting in the street. But if that is the case, they did a lot. This looks really good for that sort of attraction. It's a little weird that they would hype something up that much. So, you know, putting two and two together, we know that Shin Ultraman was in development for a very long time. This might have been an early attempt to get that off of the ground as well. The original end of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Anybody who's a hardcore anime fan has an Evangelion story. It's the original ending of the TV show had everybody wondering what was that? And a few years later, after the show ended, they released a movie that's the new ending of the show. But the funny thing is, if you watch the original show, when you get to episode 24, you get a next episode preview that's just done in storyboards. It's really like those top images there. It's very rough, but none of that stuff actually happens when you watch the next episode. But all of that stuff happens when you watch the movie. So they had one ending in mind, and then they decided at the last minute, nah, let's do something different. And then they went back and did the original ending for the movie.
So we kind of got that trailer brought to life, kind of, at the end of the day. Here's one that I'm really, it's a shame that we didn't get to see, because this is a lost project from Christoph Gans, who is the director of Silent Hill and Brotherhood of the Wolf and Crying Freeman. And it would have had special effects from David Allen, who is a great stop-motion animator. And basically, this was a live-action version of Patlabor, the Mamoru Oshii giant robot cop show. The idea in Patlabor is that in a future where everybody has giant robots, the cops also have giant robots to stop the bad guys with the giant robots. It's a lot of fun. But there were ideas for this live-action film going around as early as the 90s. And there was a trailer that was released, of all things, attached to the PlayStation game for the series, and we never actually got the live-action version until 2014, in which case all those people that I mentioned were no longer involved, but it looked considerably different. This isn't the only thing that Mamoru Oshii was involved with, because we also got a trailer for Record of Garm War in 1997, and didn't get that movie until 2014. So he just kind of puts these trailers out, and people see them and react to them, and maybe they'll happen, and maybe they'll be a decade or so later. Another one, while we're on our giant robot kick, we can talk about Taekwon V. This is a 70s super robot from Korea. It is not Mazinger Z. How would you say it looks like Mazinger Z? This is nothing like Mazinger Z. Please don't sue us. But the original 70s anime is very beloved in Korea. So when Transformers was coming out, they were like, hey, giant robots are popular. We should release a Taekwon V movie. So they got a whole bunch of talent together, and allegedly a budget of $20 million, which for Korea at the time was huge. And started working on this Taekwon V live-action film to compete with Transformers. And we got the teaser trailer released in 2008, and then we got this slow trickle of concept art until eventually the official website just went down, and we never heard anything else about it. So ooh, this looked pretty cool. Too bad it didn't come to pass. Cinematic universes are really hot right now, thanks to Marvel. You might have noticed that if you're a MonsterVerse fan. But that wasn't the only attempt by Hollywood to get in on kaiju-related stuff, because they also wanted to make a Shogun Warriors cinematic universe. So the initial idea was to launch with a Gaiking movie, and they put out this trailer that really looks quite excellent in terms of design, so modernizing the look of Gaiking and making it look a little kind of grounded and gritty for the 2010s. But they kept looking for somebody to actually write this Gaiking movie, and they weren't able to. Funnily enough, another one of the reasons why this stalled out is that they were worried that the market would be saturated, because there's a live-action Robotech coming out, and there's a live-action Voltron coming out, and none of those came out either. So this is one of a couple of projects that was done all CGI from Toei, but a sibling project to it was the live-action Space Pirate Captain Harlock, and that actually did manifest. So we got something. I would have rather we got Gaiking than Harlock, but I'm biased because I'm a giant monster dude. Another one that breaks my heart is the Imagi Tetsujin 28. This studio Imagi, they basically came out with this movie TMNT, this CGI Ninja Turtles movie that's fantastic. And they were really on a roll with a lot of remakes of classic franchises. But then unfortunately they had an Astro Boy movie with Nicolas Cage in it that didn't do so well at the box office, and it kind of tanked them financially. But while they were doing that, they had these big plans, and they kept releasing more and more teasers and trailers for things. This particular trailer they put on their website along with a kind of asking for feedback. So this was really just a, hey, this is what we want to do. How should we change it to cater to what the audiences want? That's not always the best strategy to kind of crowdsource, as you sometimes see with movies in Hollywood. But it again looks great. Would have loved to see an American Gigantor. It doesn't look as great as the Gatchaman movie looked. Gatchaman was something that they were really pushing. Again, Imagi, they kept coming back to this one. They started off with the director of TMNT, and then they moved over to June Falkenstein of the Tigger movie. They released 3 different trailers over the years for this Gatchaman. They were really game to do this, which is an interesting choice because Gatchaman, while Battle of the Planets has a built-in audience in the US, Gatchaman never really took off in quite the same way, but they wanted to do something that was faithful to the style of the Japanese original with, you know, the Japanese names and things like that. So there are 3 different trailers that were released for this. The first one is kind of a little bit bland. It's just kind of, you see their vehicles. The second one is awesome. It's the whole group fighting against a group of henchmen in a crowded warehouse. And then the third one is them fighting this giant crab-looking thing. So you can find these again on YouTube and then cry profusely because you'll never get to see these movies. So we just talked about Gatchaman, which is the science ninja team, but it kind of inspired this group of 5 heroes in masks and suits that became Power Rangers. And there was also an attempt at a CGI Power Rangers. Power Rangers has struggled for a while because it's all adapted from Japanese footage, and they keep wanting to get away from that because they don't want to have to keep licensing Japanese footage. They want to be able to make their own original project. So one of the attempts by Saban to do this was to do an animated Power Rangers. And they went to Zagtoons and basically got some stuff made up for it. It was looking really good to go, but for some reason the project fell apart. Someone in the production staff leaked the trailer. It was not officially released, but what we saw looked pretty good. Also kind of funny, they put art from Power Rangers into the background of one of the teaser trailers for Miraculous Ladybug. So you can see the Blue Ranger here in the background. So this is the same company that is currently doing Miraculous Ladybug. So they were kind of overlapping. It was synergist. But, you know, Zagtoons was actually not the first studio that was attached to Miraculous Ladybug either, because that was originally going to be done at Toei. So the CGI show that you see on, you know, the Disney Channel today used to look very different when you see those original trailers for that from Toei. It was done in traditional hand-drawn animation style. It looks very much like the Pretty Cure series that you'd see on Japanese television and is slowly taken off in the States. So again, these transforming superheroes, this is technically a French show, but I thought it was close enough and we were on that topic, we might as well mention it. You get a couple of weird American pilots for tokusatsu related things off of the success of Power Rangers, basically. Basically, Power Rangers comes out, everybody wants their own Power Rangers in the US. They start looking to what is popular in Japan. A couple of the titles that come up are Sailor Moon and Saint Seiya. And you get these pitches that are horrible looking, frankly. One of the most famous is the Toon Maker's version of Sailor Moon, which is you have live action sequences that turn into cartoon sequences for the effect scenes, but they're not the same animation that you have in the original anime, so I don't know why they didn't just recycle the anime like they do for Power Rangers. This is one of those things that is never been released to the public. You can find on YouTube basically a short that was filmed at an anime convention from somebody in the background. But lots of the film cells from the Sailor Moon live action anime hybrid
were basically sold off afterwards, and you can find those in collectors' hands. It's funny because eventually Toei did make a live-action Sailor Moon, and they didn't do any of the things that this attempt did. Also, you'll see stuff about how Netflix is producing a Saint Seiya show right now, which is going to be an American production, and this is not the first attempt at that. Back in the 90s, they wanted to make a live-action Saint Seiya to capitalize on Power Rangers, and one of the things that I think is funny about this particular trailer is that they gender swap one of the characters, who was then gender swapped also by the Netflix version. So apparently there's some talk that maybe that was to better sell in some of the South American markets. Funlai Maru is something that is not very popular or well known in the US, but it's a Japanese series about a lion-headed samurai guy. And for some reason, Akira Tsuburaya, the son of Eiji Tsuburaya, was involved in a project to do an American remake. And it actually has really cool looking concept art from Yasushi Nirasawa, the same guy that directed Gaigan and Godzilla Final Wars. So the concept art looks great. And then you see the trailer, and the trailer for 2002 looks embarrassing. You get these really corny, very out-of-the-box computer effects, which is a shame given those cool designs, but Akira Tsuburaya was also a notorious penny pincher, so it's not very surprising that even the trailer where they're trying to say, look how cool this thing looks, he's like, but maybe we don't spend so much money on it. There have been a whole lot of anime projects that have gotten trailers and not come out. There was a Devilman knockoff by Glenn Danzig called Satanika that was released on VHS as a trailer, but never came to the light of day. It's quite sad to me because some of the top people in the anime industry, including Yoshiaki Kawajiri, the creator of Ninja Scroll, worked on it. Ninja Scroll was very popular in the US, so that didn't do so well in Japan. He was always looking for funding for Ninja Scroll 2 in the US and put out some trailers for that and never manifested. Also recently, a whole anime series, Tokyo Babylon, got scrapped because it turns out they plagiarized the characters' outfits from fashion magazines and they weren't able to release it. So there's a whole anime series that you can't see thanks to the copyright violation. But we're talking about Ninja Scroll, which is a cool thing that has all sorts of weird, crazy ninjas. And that brings me to Zatoichi versus Predator, which is a cool thing with all of these crazy ninjas. So this was a thing that was released to YouTube by none other than Junya Okabe, and it was kind of a brilliant promotion because this was when he had his theatrical film Bravestorm coming out. So you put this on YouTube and people go see this and they're like, who directed this crazy thing with ninjas with machine guns in their chests and launching missiles from their mouths and stuff, and also has Zatoichi and Predator? And then they would look it up and be like, oh, it's that guy that has a movie in the theaters. I should go and see that. This is now being expanded into a movie, but without Zatoichi or Predator because of copyright reasons. So that was also, they did a lot of work on designing these weird, cool ninjas, but now that they have those concepts and costumes and they've done a proof of concept, they're currently seeking funds for a feature about those ninja characters. And we'll see if that comes to the light of day or if the crowdfunding falls short. It's still up in the air. Now, since we're talking about things like that, I think we can talk about some fan-made trailers. There are a whole host of things along these lines, as we mentioned before. One of the things that is is a real shame, this is actually the 10th year at G-Fest since Mark Jaramillo brought footage from Wolfman vs. Godzilla to show off to the audience here.
And that's one of the most well-known, notorious fan films in the history of the Godzilla franchise, and it still hasn't been released, despite the fact that we've had maybe 30 minutes of unedited footage put out to the public so far. Mark Jaramillo went about tracking down other amateur, independent, and fan films, and he was making a documentary called Kaiju Gaiden. And to an extent, what I'm doing here is along those lines, looking into weird things that have fallen through the cracks of time. Mark was making a documentary. He did some crowdfunding for it. There were multiple trailers that came out along the way. Then there was a schism in the production where he went one way, David Hall went another way. David Hall was the director, Mark was the producer. They were each making competing trailers for the film. To add to the chaos, there was a couple of malfeasants that were making fake trailers and putting those up online to confuse people. But at the end of the day, everybody who was involved in the production has since kind of dropped off the radar, so this documentary unfortunately has not come to pass. So it's a documentary about lost films, which is ironically itself lost. So we talked about the Wolfman versus Godzilla. That wasn't the only thing that director Shizuo Nakajima made as a fan film. In fact, before he did Wolfman versus Godzilla, he started off with a pitch for Wolfman versus Baragon. So you get this kind of cool short trailer of Baragon and the Wolfman facing off. And he did a fantastic job. You know, he worked for Toho when he was making this. So his knowledge of the craft and making things look authentic to an actual film is flabbergasting. Wolfman vs. Godzilla was so popular among fan circles that it got a parody. So Masahiko Kato, another huge name in the independent kaiju movie space, in the fan film space, he is so tired of waiting for Wolfman vs. Godzilla to finally get a release that he makes his own fake trailer for Rabbit Man vs. Godzilla. About, you know, instead of somebody that transforms into a wolf at the full moon, into a rabbit at the full moon. And for those who know Japanese culture, there's a whole thing about rabbits and the moon, you know, like Sailor Moon is named Usagi, which means rabbit, etc., etc. We could go into for a lot, but it's really funny to just see, like, somebody transforms into a vicious rabbit. It's very Monty Python. Another Kato project was Matango 2. This is one of those ones that he made several short films, including, you know, a Rodan 2, an Atragon 2, Resurrection of Daimajin, but this was only ever done as a trailer. And funny enough, when you were purchasing this short film trailer, it comes with a making of that's many times longer than the trailer itself. And again, it's a shame we can't get the video to work because I wanted to show you guys. But after we got time, I'll do something. So yeah, this is during the production of the Prince of Egypt. Some jokers at DreamWorks got together and decided to make a little project about well, we're making this very respectful Moses movie. What's the kind of goofiest Moses thing that we can do along those lines? And this is one that, like, I remember seeing this back when I was in middle school online and just thinking it was the greatest thing in the history of history. For those that remember the grim, gritty Power Rangers remake in 2017, there's some speculation that might have been inspired by this fan film that we got that was a fake trailer for a grim, gritty Power Rangers that a lot of the people behind, like, Castlevania and Dawson's Creek created. And this is always a funny one to me because this guy has done all of these fan films. He's done Punisher and Venom and a dark, gritty Pokemon. And he does this as a joke. He's like, wouldn't it be ridiculous if Power Rangers were grim and dark and people were getting brutally murdered with guns? And then the Power Rangers fan base sees this and they're like, yeah, they should do that. Here's one that I think should be pretty familiar to people of the G-Fest demographic. Shingo Maihata, the director of Gem and Zella Monster Martial Law, teamed up with Robert Scott Field and made a kind of a short trailer for a M11 Jet Jaguar crossover thing. This has since been removed from the official Overroad film webpage, but Robert Scott Field has uploaded it himself. I don't know quite where this was going. Robert Scott said that it was planned as a full feature, but you know, well, we didn't get any statements like that from Maihata, so I don't know if it was a miscommunication or kind of what the situation was. But it's a fun little gag to have, you know, Jet Jaguar come back as a modern robot that has to fight M11. But the funny thing to me is, while people are like, oh, you mean that fake Jet Jaguar trailer? I'm like, well, which one? Because there was also, in 2020, the Godzilla's official YouTube page on April 1st released this trailer for Jet Jaguar's standalone movie. It's always a little hard to tell, because if you'll remember, Shin Godzilla was also announced on April 1st. But I think it's fair to say that this was not a sincere move on Toho's part. The Godzilla YouTube page has done a lot of fun stuff. So one of the projects that they had was called the Gemstone Competition, where fans were able to submit their own shorts and material. One of those that got a lot of attention was this G vs. G, which is a Godzilla vs. Gaigan fan trailer. And the director of that actually was able to leverage that. He got to work on the Shinkalia movie. He got to design and animate the Godzilla that appears in that crazy train robot movie where Godzilla fights Hatsune Miku in Evangelion. So this is something that they're keeping on. This is this 50th anniversary of Gaigan this year, so they're going to release a follow-up to this short in November, probably. So that is a wrap. We've got a little bit of time. I'll try to pull some stuff up on my computer for people that want to see it. But thanks everybody for attending.